immediately made this political, blaming DEI and the Democrats.
DEI is political, period. It's a political ideology. So what CNN doesn't understand, and I literally heard, it wasn't her, this one, but someone else on there, some other host, say, oh, Donald Trump's talking about common sense, some right-wing thing. Like, this is how stupid. Okay, because, look, it's very simple. If you don't have common sense, I don't care how educated you are, you're an idiot. You are. You're just filled with a ton of academia. And I see that in the C-suite nurses and, well, at least the last place I worked at, those executives, you know, it's all about the money they make and how many letters they have after their name. Because my profession, who sets the standard of care, made it years ago with the magnet program. They made it all about how many letters you have after your name. They just continually want you to go for certificates and more schooling and all. Okay, so I've said this a million times, but I'm going to say it again because I'm an associate degree nurse and I'm a good one. And I stand up for what's right. Again, even when it sabotages myself. Not wanting to, but just because I hate to bend the knee to something I know is wrong, okay? And I'm not perfect, clearly not perfect, but the stuff I've seen going on the last several years in nursing is just so horrendous, okay? And so the people that set the standard of care, even though I'm not a member of American Nurses Association, they have been allowed to set the standard of care in nursing. That shouldn't be going on. Plus, they don't even know what they're doing. Okay, they've brought in all this stuff that it's taken away the powerful role nurses play. And I have so many examples of this, especially from the last place I worked at, because it's not just a staffing problem. It's because these globalists, they don't want to have to pay nurses, so they don't staff, okay? But they also have, because they know doctors and nurses have licenses that they protect, that's the reason why the problem with DEI is it lowers the standard for everything. So when you lower what best practices were in nursing, you lower it and lower it, then it becomes unsafe. I mean, we call it best practices because it's the best practices to keep patients and everybody the most safe. Okay, and safety is hugely important when you're working in psych. Yet I've never seen anything more dangerous than where I worked at. Okay, like, and it's a situation that could be managed, but you need staff. There's a whole bunch of things you need. But what you have is you have an entire executive branch, and they're a Fortune 500 hospital that just cares about the money. And that's what DEI has done. DEI has given them the excuse to take the nurse and the doctor out of the admission of the patient, even though the psychologist, that's some executive, okay, she doesn't, under her scope of practice, she is not allowed to put orders in. A nurse, I'm allowed to talk to the doctor on the phone, and if he gives me a med order or admission orders, then it's a done deal. That used to be the standard of practice. I don't know how they're getting around any of this, but they have, at this place I was at, they have their own system for just green lighting it. That's what they call it. No, we'll green light the admission. So then the patient comes to me, and then I call the doctor, and the doctor's like, nobody told me about this. And so then he wants to talk to intake, and then, then that's why doctors end up leaving. They're like, what? You're green lighting something? You want me to tell the nurse to put orders in? So doing everything that goes against the very scope of our practice, okay? Because only a doctor can admit, and only a nurse can put orders in from a doctor. So everything that DEI does, it's like it deliberately wants to make things dangerous. It wants to stress people out, and it wants to get people hurt. Because nobody is so this stupid. Like, as I said in my last video, taking mechanical restraints away was the worst thing ever. But you go and you read what Joint Commission has to say, and they're like, oh, we have to come up with something. No, stay out of it. You people don't even know the hospitals that really you should be, putting on a warning or maybe suspending. Okay? And not that I want that because people need their jobs, but look, we say, if you don't want to have something happen, and there's already been enough that's happened. This place that I worked for, they have a long history of patients committing suicide in their facility, getting raped, getting wounded. And then what they do, what C-suite does, is always the staff. It's always the staff. Well, when you don't have staff, you can't keep blaming them. What you do have is you have nurses trying to pull their hair out, trying to tackle all of this. And you just get to this point where it's like, I can't, it's just like, it's not manageable, it's unsafe, and it's DEI that has allowed all of the high standards we used to have in nursing to go by the wayside, because the nursing profession is too busy doing Magnet Worldwide now, which they say is excellence in nursing, but they base that all on how many letters you have after your name. And yet many of those nurses, they sit behind a computer at American Nurses Association or wherever, or in the executive branch. They're not at the bedside. They don't, not on a regular basis. They don't know. And yet the people the bedside care workers and the nurses at the bedside are the ones that have been saying forever, no, we know what's needed. But see, they're not interested in safety. They love to carry on about safety, but they're really not interested in it because they've lowered the standard for everything. While nursing continues to say you should go get more education. Why? So I can end up as stupid as you. So that I can end up with no common sense like these people that set the standard of care for my profession. Like I can end up like the executive who was the chief nursing officer where I was at, who has a bunch of letters after her name. She has like no experience in psych. She was from ER, but came as a chief nursing officer because she's from one of the ER Nurse Association. Okay, like that makes any sense at all. And she just goes along with it. So it's like you're in a leadership position. And yeah, you would make the excuse, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, that's why people leave. So you show that you're willing to sell out. Like, at least just be honest with people and say, hey, I'm selling out, because we'd have more respect for you. Because everybody knows there's not enough staff. Everybody knows it's not therapeutic, and nobody's really getting any help. And so people that are true psych nurses, okay, that are in it because they want to help people, it's very frustrating, it's very upsetting, and it's very grotesque because DEI has literally been the tool that's been used to bypass all the best practices that we used to have set in place, where the nurse and the doctor decide if this patient should be admitted, and no executive gets to override that because the nurse and the doctor are considering the other patients on the unit and considering the acuity of that patient. So if you have you have different, units for like high acuity, which would be people that are hearing voices or they're paranoid or violent. Okay. And then you have, a step down unit from that where maybe that's people hearing voices, and then a step down unit where you have people with depression and suicide. But what this place did, in most places, they just admit them. They don't care. So you can end up hurting an entire unit of depressed patients by putting a paranoid schizophrenic in with people that are there for depression and suicide. You can cause trauma. But they don't care. It's all about money, and DEI has done that. DEI has it's been what has been utilized while they say that that's so important. That's why they put it in every medical paper. They should be ashamed of themselves. But it's literally been the thing used to take the nurse and the doctor out of admitting, and I don't know how legally they're getting around that. I don't. They have enough lawyers, so somehow they're doing it. But we used to have a high standard where the doctor and the nurse are considering everybody. Yeah, the executives aren't considering everybody. They're only looking at dollar signs. So that's what DEI has done. And it takes common sense to see that, and clearly CNN lacks common sense. It's not right wing, it's common sense.